Okay, the purpose of this video is to go over just some, I don't know if I call it a strategy or a tactic, but the idea is to gain a piece or to gain an advantage or to win a piece that's stronger than the piece that you lose or gain material. So I'm going to present a couple of board positions here. I would say I'm not always presenting the strongest or best possible move in each situation. But the goal for me in this video is to simply look at the whole idea of trying to gain material. That's the main idea here. So I have a board position here with white in. You can see black doesn't really have many pieces developed. They have one knight that's moved a couple times and no other really pieces that are activated here. And the idea for white in this position is to gain material. Now, I know that many people will look at actually moving their bishop to d5. Now, a bishop to d5, make sure you see what's happening when you move bishop to d5. It actually it's a fork, honestly, and which is not a bad move, but I do want to look at a stronger move in this situation. Look at bishop d5 once it moves to that square. Keep in mind that it's attacking the knight, and it's also attacking the rook, which is really, really nice. So we have a fork by the bishop. There's no way for black to be able to save both of those two pieces, other than maybe just giving up the knight by taking a pawn or doing something of that nature. So the bishop move is a strong move. However, there is a better move in this situation that I want to talk about that gains material. It actually gains the same or very similar material, but at the exact same time, it creates an even bigger problem for black. And so the move that I'd like to look at is to move the queen to d5, moving the queen to the same square there. Noting that the queen would be doing the exact same thing the bishop was doing, in that it would be attacking the knight and would be attacking the rook. But it's important to note there's a third idea or a third threat or another threat that it adds when the queen moves there instead of the bishop. It's important to note that there is now a checkmate threat. There's a checkmate threat because the bishop is guarding the queen, and the queen would be able to take the pawn on the f7 square. And so bishop or queen, either piece to d5, would be a strong move in this situation because you would gain material. You would win the knight or the rook, depending on how black decides to deal with the situation. But the queen moving there is even stronger because it creates an immediate threat of checkmate that black has to deal with. And then you could win more or better, or you have more threats on the board than you had before. That concept. So it's important to see how maybe originally you see one move looks good, but other moves might be better. I'm going to move on to a different position here. That all these positions again occurred in games that either I've played or that I've gone over with people. And next, for white, we're looking at, I'm sorry, this one is for black. Let me flip the board for you. This is a black position. And this actually is not an all too uncommon position for people to get into. Black has a way here to gain significant advantage. Now they're definitely winning this game, but they have all kinds of threats and all kinds of pieces attacking towards the king. And actually it's important to note, to tell you the truth, that this queen line is the big threat. So I'm gonna keep actually the queen line here. Here's the huge threat. Queen's lined up on the king. The pawn in front of it's just guarding it. But this happens so many times in games that I see is the correct move for black in this situation would be to play your bishop to h3. Now, some would not normally even think about that move because they would be ultimately nervous about the pawn taking it. But you need to realize that the queen is pinning that pawn and it really can't do anything. So I'm going to play the bishop here. And take a look at what is going on now that the bishop has been played there. So we haven't gained any material yet, but we definitely are about to. Because as you take a look at this, board position, white has to realize that queen takes pawn is checkmate, and so they're going to have to deal with that as quickly as they can, as quickly as possible. And there aren't really many ways to deal with it. I mean, they can't even defend it here because the pawn is there defending that square. They can't really block here because guess what? The black bishop can just take it, and now white really can't really do anything because if the queen takes it, they lose their queen. So not many good options. So generally the best option here in this situation, you don't want to lose. So I would say your options are either they're going to have to just give up this bishop, which is horrible, or they're going to have to push the pawn here to create this barricade. And now we can see that, again, my idea in this video is to gain material, and we've set up a situation where that bishop's going to gain that rook, if you'd like, and we know that rooks are more valuable than bishops in general, so that's a gain material situation. I'm going to move on to a third board position, and this one is a little bit tricky in that there's a few different combinations going on where I think people would play moves in the wrong order a lot of times, and I would fully admit that in this situation I am not actually going to be presenting the strongest move. In this position I'm only looking at a mistake that I see players make frequently, and so looking at the black pieces, I think immediately black a lot of times looks at, hey, I got a free bishop on the board. I'm thinking maybe I should just take that free bishop. When they fail to overlook the fact that they're also being attacked at the same time. And so knowing that, yeah, I have a free piece, but not seeing that you're also under attack, I think all too often a beginning player will take the free bishop, but then they'll lose their rook. And after they lose their rook, I'll move this real quick. They'll take the free bishop, they'll lose their rook, and now guess what? They're in some trouble because the bishop's under attack. Not only that, but they had lost material. They gained a bishop, but they lost their rook. The whole idea is to gain the material, not lose it. And so I'm going to go back and take a look at what might be better in this position. So the idea here would be to try to gain that bishop that we're attacking, but not lose anything in the process, or at least to remain, I guess, even. So as we look at this, we would need to understand that we need to take care of a problem that we have. We actually have, I'm going to highlight these, actually I'll go red on these. This is my kind of red flag. These two pieces are under attack, and I need to kind of deal with that before I take the bishop that I want to take. And so a powerful way to deal with it, or to gain an advantage, or to kind of get a free move, if you will, a lot of times, is to play a checking move, because a checking move means we freed a piece, and then once we freed it, then we can go capture that piece that we really want to capture. So the checking move, let me erase these, there's not so much on the board here, but the checking moves that I want to look at would be a move like the bishop check. Okay, the bishop check would be a strong move because then I would be freeing my bishop, and I'd be freeing my bishop so that there's no longer this attack here on it. And after I check, then it looks like I'd have the freedom to start taking some pieces, and I'll talk about that move in a second. So the other move I could do is I could make a rook check. So make that rook check there, that would free my rook up so it's not under attack anymore. And once that's gone, I could possibly take some other pieces. But I guess I am looking at maybe what the strongest move is now that I'm seeing some things on the board. And I'm going to go with this bishop check because it's important to note. Okay, the bishop check frees the bishop. It's all great. Okay, now this king, I'm going to find out where this king's going to move. Okay, if it moves to attack me, it's important to note that it has moved in a line with my rook, and now it's moved in danger because I'm looking at, oh, look at that, I could take that bishop and check. But guess what? I'd be making a mistake because my rook, remember my rook and my bishop here were still under attack, and now my rook is still under attack. So I'm thinking first what I'd want to do is I would want to take the rook. Now keep in mind, I could take either rook, really. I have gained a rook. So now white has some problems. The bishop is pinned. This bishop can't move. They've just lost a rook. So I'm thinking that the best option here is they want to at least maintain and take my rook. But guess what? Remember that bishop that I had under attack a while ago? It's still under attack. So I'm able to take that, and I've just won that bishop. But I have to be careful in the order that I move my pieces because I want to be able to get it without losing anything. I'm just going to move back here. If they didn't move in line, if when they were in check they didn't move in line because they did not want to create a pin, well, I could still take one of these rooks, whichever one I guess I'd want to take one of these rooks, and they're still in a very difficult position. If they decide to save the bishop I was attacking, well, I won a rook, so I've gained a rook, which is huge. If they just take my rook, remember I still have this attack here. So it's order of movement and watching your other pieces, but you can still gain material in tough positions. Now, my last position I'm going to look at is this one. And I'm going to try to go through this one a little bit quickly and just wrap this video up. But you need to eyeball this square right here, this C2 square. Okay, in fact, the C2 square and the F2 square for white, and I would say the C7 and the F7 square for black, are squares where a lot of things can happen. And so it's important to note that black is currently attacking the C2 square with two pieces here. And so I'm going to just show you this forking move that happens over and over in chess against white, against black. Actually happens a lot against black, but and look at what this is doing. We've gained a pawn, but we are attacking the rook and we're checking the king. So now if we think about this, white has to deal with this check. And there's really only two ways to deal with the check. Way one would be if the queen takes the knight. Well, if the queen takes the knight, then we need to realize that we're going to win the queen. We've definitely won some material because the bishop's going to take it. Okay, if white decides not to lose the queen, then they would have to move their king out of the way. Now, if they move their king out of the way, wherever they move it, okay, well, we need to realize that if we would like the idea of gain material, we could just take that rook, and we now gain a pawn and a rook, and we haven't even lost a piece yet. Chances are, well, we might lose that knight, it might get stuck in the corner, but we've still gotten a rook and a pawn for it. So, gain material, the idea of taking more than you lose, is a significant strategy in chess. I can't say that it will always win you games because the pieces that are left on the board are more important than the pieces you've taken sometimes. So be careful, but look for ways to gain material. I think that's very, very important in chess. Take advantage of your opponent's mistakes too.